tuned for the Joan Quinn Profiles. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, LA Style, and Detour magazines, Joan covered the social set, the Hollywood hotshots, the international art scene, the mysteries of food, the excitement of travel, and the fabulous world of fashion. Joan continues to find creative people on the cutting edge who make things happen. Here's Joan Agajanian Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Waiting to be profiled is director David Michaels and photographer Frederic Roberts, whose photographs are on the set. David Michaels was born and raised in New York, and by the time he was 17, he was acting and modeling and attending Hofstra University and landing a spot as a game contestant on TV. David, you moved right into the world of TV.
I did. When I was a contestant, it was the first time I'd ever been in a TV studio, and I was just fascinated by the whole idea of it. And the woman who had chosen me to be a contestant, they came up with another show, and they asked me to do the pilot for it, and the pilot sold, and they offered me a production job, and all I knew about TV was that when the red light goes on, you act. I mean, that's all I knew.
Is that right?
But I got the job, and I faked my way through it, and that was for Bob Stewart, who was one of the great geniuses. I mean, he doesn't get credit, but he really created Password and The Price is Right and all those classic shows. And so I rose up to a producer with him very quickly.
Was that your contestant? What kind of show was that?
It was on the original version of the $20,000 Pyramid.
Really?
And then I went on with him to produce the $25,000 and the $100,000 Pyramid with Dick Clark. Yeah.
And then you went, I was going to say, you went on with Dick Clark and you were awarded 2 Emmys during that time. And then you started talk shows. And you did Vicky and Carol and Marilyn, the mommies.
Well,
they were the mommies.
I mean, you remember, because kind of the game shows went away, and then the talk shows came in.
But how did you feel when the game shows were going away? Because here you were, big Emmy Award winner.
Yeah, I felt totally lost, and you get so pigeonholed, as you know, in the business. And so actually my transition into the talk shows came from Vicki Lawrence, who I knew from the game shows.
Oh, so you used that.
And so that's really how I moved over. And because I mean, we really know that producing is producing, but people love to say, oh, well, he's a talk show producer, he's a game show producer. Where I think if you're a producer, you're a producer.
But was that holding you back? I mean, were they pointing at you like that, saying, oh, he was a game show?
It was, and it actually came full circle years later. I did a pilot for Disney, and when it was all over, the woman from Disney said to me, I'd really love to work with you again, but we don't really do talk shows, we only do game shows. That really happened, yes, right.
I know about that.
Quickly they
that
forget.
Was great, isn't it? I mean, the funny thing that it happened like that.
Mm-hmm.
But you found you were doing these shows, you were producing shows, and you were looking for, say, stars. How did you go about finding them? Like you just said how you found Vicky, but how did you find, say, Carol and Marilyn?
Carol and Marilyn, let's see, how did I actually meet them? Well, it's funny. Marilyn, in fact, now works with a woman named Nancy Allspaw, who I worked with on Vicky.
Is that right?
It's like, I think there are only 3 degrees of separation in Hollywood.
Not 6, huh?
Everybody knows everybody, and actually it was Nancy who brought me in to work with Carol and Marilyn.
And that was a big show that you produced?
Yeah, and I worked with Lisa as well in the middle of all that.
Oh, so you were doing that. But then did the personalities kind of die out, those kind of shows?
Well, you see where talk shows have kind of gone. I mean, I think then it went into that kind of very tabloid kind of talk show years, which, I'm sorry, but I'm proud to say I never did any of those. I wasn't in the business to make people cry. I was there to entertain people.
So maybe that was a little transition for you.
It was. It really was.
Because you became active in the Academy of Arts and Sciences, and you were 6-time governor there, 6 terms.
Yeah. Yeah.
So did that kind of take you away, or did that put you more into the middle of TV?
No, I think that was more into the middle of TV.
It did?
Yeah, definitely, because when you're involved in the governance of like how the Emmy Awards are going and this and that, I mean, it can only it can only get you more involved and more fired up, and you like to think that we do some good when we're governors.
What else did you do as a governor? Was that like a full-time job then?
No. There are 50 governors at any given time, 2 from every what they call peer group. And so at the time when I was doing the talk shows and the game shows, I was the governor of the daytime programming group.
Oh, because you had experience in that.
Right,
I
and then
see.
so there's a governor from directors, from every facet of the business.
Oh, that's interesting.
And so everybody would interact, and that's basically how the rules of the Emmy Awards and everything that goes on happen.
Did you meet? 50 of you meet at a time?
Yeah, once a month.
Oh, you did?
But everyone was there as a volunteer, and had their regular jobs as well. So.
Well, while you were there, I guess you founded TV Cares and
that's my proudest
chaired it.
thing. My proudest thing there. The TV Academy had never really taken on a cause, and when AIDS was at the height, not that we're through with it yet, but I got really angry, and I had to find a way to kind of channel the anger, and so I formed this group, and I got really balked at by the Board of Governors. It was a strange concept that the TV Academy would take on something like this.
Is it because they were conservative, or because they had never done any humanitarian
At that time, it
things?
was very conservative, much more than it is now. And so what I did was, I had never met her. She's now one of my dearest, dearest friends, but I had never met Angela Lansbury.
Oh.
And I wrote her a letter and told her the trouble I was having. And the next day, her late husband, Peter Shaw, called me and said, whatever we can do, we're going to make this happen. And when I went back to the Board of Governors with Angela Lansbury wants to work with us, then they couldn't say no, and that's what made it happen.
Is it still a part of the Academy?
Yes.
It still is?
Every year we do, it's called the Ribbon of Hope celebration, and we reward responsible programming in the area of AIDS awareness and education,
But
which
that's so
hopefully then
important.
encourages it. Yeah.
That's very important. Then it encourages it because you're behind it, right? Because the Academy's behind it. Is that part of the humanitarian awards that they give, or is that a separate thing?
That's a whole separate thing.
Oh, it is?
This is a thing unto itself, but it's been very varied. I mean, we've honored people from Sharon Stone to Bruce Vilanch, and everything in between, and all kinds of programming, from sitcom to dramas to soaps.
How do you select them?
The committee gets together and we get the word out, and it's a combination of people submitting their work and us finding it ourselves. Somebody will sit around the table and someone will say, I saw an episode of this, or I saw an episode of that.
Oh, I see.
And we also honor PSAs, public service announcements.
Oh, you do?
And then there's usually one big personality for their deeds, and their.
Yeah, you wonder how those are chosen. I mean, you see that, we see it on television, we read about it, but then we didn't know, you don't know what committee's behind it, or
Yeah, and
that kind
with
of thing.
TV Cares, it's a lot less formal than the Emmy Awards, where it is people sitting around a table making decisions, where for
Right.
the Emmy Award, you're not supposed to tell anyone how you voted, you're not supposed to discuss it with anyone.
I see.
So it's a whole different process.
But this charity thing is a big thing for you. The Actors Fund, you became development director.
that was the next transition.
Was that the next step?
You have to be careful what you ask for. I was having lunch with somebody, and I said, I'm getting so tired of my life potentially falling apart every 13 weeks. That if you hear of anything in the nonprofit industry, I'd be willing to make the transition. And it turned out that the Actors Fund was looking to start a development department on the West Coast. They've been on the East Coast forever. And so about 5 weeks later, there I was doing it.
But that was a job.
Oh yeah, that's a job.
That wasn't
Yeah, it was the first time it was a job in that area, and I had to get used to the fact that I was working there and I wasn't sneaking in my charity work.
Yeah, so you were doing. How'd you raise the money? How do you raise the money for the Actors Fund?
Well, through events, there are membership donations, there are memorial donations. So
Do you chase them down? I mean, are you like calling people all the time?
I'm calling people, and I'm finding the best way that I've brought people into the fold, as it were, has been through events.
And then you have to get a celebrity to chair the event.
Somebody to chair the event, and then the talent to be in the event.
Oh, the talent too. You do all of that?
Yeah. I'm kind of a one-man development department. Where there's a large development department in New York. But it's kind of me here.
But it comes easily to you because of the connections, I would think.
Well,
No?
you know how easy it is to book things.
always
let's just say it's
falling
always
out.
a challenge. It's
It
always
is a challenge, and they're always falling
But
out.
I've got to say,
right?
a lot of wonderful celebrities have committed to
But
us
there
and
are.
shown up.
Yes.
Oh, there's so many good people.
What is the STAGE, S-T-A-G-E?
STAGE stands for Southland Theater Artists Goodwill Event. And there's been...
Is that part of your thing?
Well, actually, our part is Stage 2. Stage has been around for 20 years, and 6 years ago we started Stage 2, which is, it's basically we take the music of a composer and we get 20, 25 stars to sing their music.
Oh, that's great.
And do it
yes.
as a film. And we just did, last year we did Cy Coleman, and it turned out to be just about a week before we lost him.
Oh.
And as devastating as that was, I feel so good though that he was
saw
there and he got that tribute. And
What else does the Actors Fund do? I know it helps actors.
helps, and not only actors,
How?
but anyone in the entertainment industry. Financially, there's a full AIDS initiative with full case management. There's a women's health initiative. There's a program for seniors. There's a drug dependency program.
Aren't actors, big ones anyway, kind of embarrassed to come to you and say, I need help?
Not necessarily. I mean, part of the thing about the Actors Fund is that anyone who does come to us for help, it's totally confidential.
Oh,
So you would be extremely surprised to know some of the people who have walked through the doors. And it's always, one of my favorite things is when we're doing a big event with a star, and then they say, you helped me before I was ever, you know.
Well, talking about that, I think you produce those readings to help you
Yeah.
with that. So talk about Casablanca.
Casablanca's coming up. It's our third annual one. We've done All About Eve with Stuckert Channing and Tim Curry and Angela Lansbury and many others.
Sunset Boulevard.
With Angelica Houston and Sir Ben Kingsley. And this year we're doing Casablanca, which seems to be one of the most beloved screenplays ever.
But how do you do it? How do you put those words in somebody's mouth?
Well, it's a reading, but with movement. So, and people, we only get the celebrities for like 2.5 days. So they have the books, and they're literally reading the screenplay, but we put in movement and we put in other kinds of exciting things. And it's amazing when you find a good screenplay. David Rambo takes them and he adopts them so that they fit into the medium of the stage. Because obviously we're not going to have car chases. And
So do you have celebrities sitting on stools?
they're sitting part of the time, they're moving part of the
they
time.
are as
Like in
well.
Sunset Boulevard, Angelica did the tango with Patrick Wilson.
Oh, how
You know, the
great.
famous tango.
She loves that anyway. She loves to
she's an
dance. She's
amazing
such a
woman.
great dancer.
But Casablanca we're really, really excited about. And I know that your policy here is not to say websites or anything, but since we are totally a charitable organization, if people want to find out more about Casablanca, you can go to www.actorsfund.org.
And that's all charitable. .org is a charity,
Totally.
isn't
I mean,
it?
we're here to help anyone in the entertainment industry. Our name's kind of confusing because we don't just help actors, we help everybody.
But the Actors Fund is the sponsor of these radio,
Yeah.
not radio, you call them readings.
Readings, yeah.
They're like radio readings.
Yeah, we're doing
in
it
a way,
at the
aren't they?
Pantages Theater. It's live on stage.
Is that right? So,
One night only.
how do you find the actors? Just from your background that you've got again?
Yeah,
Or do you have certain people in mind?
Certain people are in mind. Certain people we just go out and ask. You know, I'm not afraid to ask anybody for anything.
Especially if
But-
it's for charity.
Exactly, and a lot of people who would not normally do something like this will do it because it's for the Actors Fund.
Yeah, that's what's great.
So we're about to announce the cast for Casablanca, and it's going to be as exciting as the other ones. And the audience just loves these.
The story that I love is when you said you came full circle with the producing of the game shows. Are you going to go back full circle and start acting in these?
I don't know. I never say never. No one's asked me to be in one.
Have you thought about acting again?
You know, actually, I have. I mean, someday maybe. You know. Who knows? Because, you know, we keep changing our little age ranges and who we are. And
Exactly.
So I'll never say never about anything legal.
Well, we're going to keep looking for you. We'll see where this takes you. Thank you.
Thank you. It's delightful to be here.
David Michaels, thanks very much. And don't go away. We'll be right back with Frederic Roberts. And he's our photographer of the day. Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome back to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Photographer Frederic Roberts was born and raised in New York. After attending prep school in Pennsylvania, he went to Yale. Fred had a completely different life before he became a photographer and author. Let's talk about what you did after school. Is that when you went into banking?
I did. I went to Wall Street. I worked for Lehman Brothers, and it was my graduate school. They taught me mergers and financing, and I was in that business for 30 years, more than 30 years.
Is that right? And then you became chairman?
Chairman of the NASD, the National Association of Securities Dealers.
That was a big, heavy-duty thing.
It was a very, very big title.
Yes.
Let me say that. A big thing is when you get paid. A big title is when you don't get paid.
Is that a different kind of thing, really?
Yeah. There was people used to say, you were president of the NASD, and I said, no, the president made $1 million a year. I was chairman, I made nothing.
Oh, I see.
But
that was your charity work.
Well, it was one of them. And despite the fact that I was registered for security sales, because you have to be in the merger and financing business, I was not a stockbroker, which is what most people think of as being a securities dealer.
I see.
And I was elected to the local board of California in 1984, and then I went on the board in 1991. The national board, I was elected chairman in 1993.
But all the time you were working in your other life, not as a photographer, you were doing charity work. Because you supported the Spotlight Award that's at the Music Center of downtown Los Angeles. What is that about, and how did you get involved in it?
Well, you know, it's interesting. In New York, it's part of the culture, being involved in charities. An interesting anecdote is that my first day on Wall Street at Lehman Brothers, I was called in to see Robert Lehman, who was then alive, and happily. And he said to me, welcome to the firm, I hope you do very well, and by the way, what charities are you volunteering for?
Oh, so they expected it for you.
They expected it. It was part of the culture. It was a very charitable, patrician sort of atmosphere.
So when you came to Los Angeles?
I just kept going, and I was recruited to be on the board of the Los Angeles Chamber Orchestra.
I see. So you started with...
I started with that. And then Esther Wachtel, cleverly, who was then president of the Music Center 25 years ago, said to me, why don't you come on the board of the Music Center, which I then did.
Oh, I see.
And I started for her, excuse me, I started by running something called the Mercado.
Oh, I remember that.
And we took over the entire plaza of the Music Center and reproduced essentially a department store for 2 days. And it was, I believe I must have gotten about $2 million worth of merchandise donated.
Which was a lot of money. I mean, you were making a lot of money at that time. And then you went on to continue that for Disney Hall. That was already for the music. That was for the
all for
Pavilion
the music,
and Tape and the Amundsen.
Right. And then after I got done with a year of the Mercado, I said, please, this was enough. I don't ever want to do this again. And it was a lot. It was a lot. So 5 years later, she called me and she said, I know you said you'd never chair anything again, but I'd like you to see this scholarship program. It was part of another program. It was part of the Winter Carnival.
That was part of the Spotlight, the scholarship program.
Right. And she said, what do you think about this? And I said, I think it's a great concept. We can develop it. And with that huge error in that meeting, I wound up being chairman for 15 years. And I raised, on average, over the 15 years, about $1 million a year.
But how did you pick the kids who came on to be spotlighted? They were musicians mostly, weren't they?
Right. There are six categories of performing arts: instrumental music, voice and dance, classical and non-classical. And two divisions later it developed of visual arts, painting essentially and photography. And we have an open application system, and we have a very complex, very expensive, I might add, system of auditions, which cuts down the competitors to finally the last 2 in each category, which and they perform every year on the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion stage.
I see, and then they, because they're so good, get picked up all around the world.
Amazing.
I'm sure.
We have an amazing alumni association after now, what is, I guess, 17 years of this.
Were you with the camera all this time? Were
No.
you weren't taking photographs of any of these things? You didn't do the Mercado? You didn't do the Spotlight Awards?
No, what
Disney
happened?
Hall?
No. No, actually, Gil Garcetti did Disney Hall. But
I know he did, but you weren't there with your camera?
No. And actually, I should have, because there was sort of an overlap. In 1986, I went away for 6 months to sort of have my midlife crisis. And I went to Thailand, China, and Tibet. And I bought a camera. I don't think I owned a camera before.
You mean in Los Angeles?
In Los Angeles. Got on the plane to go to Asia. Read the manual on the plane as I went to Asia. And got there and just, they were interesting places. So I shot a bunch of pictures and came back. And people said to me, gee, these are great pictures. And I said, really, I don't really know much about it. And I took a 2-weekend course at UCLA with a fellow named Al Mulvey. And he and his wife were both senior photographers at National Geographic. And he reviewed the pictures for me, and he said, these are really good.
But you were traveling. This was really National Geographic kind of stuff. Is that why you chose them to take the class?
I wouldn't have known my pictures from National Geographic or anything else. I had no concept. And then I found that I had a major financial crisis. And although Al Mulvey in 1986 wanted to become my personal teacher based on the quality of the work, I really couldn't concentrate on it. So after just about 6 weeks, I took all of the pictures and the camera and threw it into a bag and threw it into my closet and didn't look at it for 14 years.
Is that what happened?
That's what happened.
So now, do we call you you have a book, you have these great pictures. Are these the same pictures that you took when you went the first time?
Well, I hate to admit it, but this one is
it's beautiful.
From 1986. This was no school, no workshops, no tutoring, no nothing.
What did you pack up and take with you? Just this camera? No equipment?
No, nothing. No. Now, of course,
when you go
it's
back.
14 years later. I retired in 2000, and I decided that I wanted to do it again. I used to give lectures to CEOs all the time, and I used to say to them, if your business is your life, you have no life, and you'd better get a life. And my charity, I thought, would always be my life.
Yeah.
I thought I'd stop working, as I did in 2000, and I'd go off and concentrate on my charity work. And by a complete fluke, someone told me about the Santa Fe workshops. And I went and I took the most basic photography course, basically starting with how to load your camera. And I just got, I don't know what it was. It was like there was something inside of me the whole time, and it just came out. And then there was sort of no stopping me. And between years, remember, that was only 2000.
But then you went back to Asia?
Yes, and I used to travel quite a bit for business, including in Asia.
Oh, I see. So you had a familiarity.
I did.
What I was going to say is, have you chosen other poverty-ridden, ridden countries? Because your pictures come out of that kind of necessity. You call your book Humanitas.
Yes,
it's like humanity.
Let me say that if the actual point of the book is the opposite.
Oh.
It is that despite the fact that these people have no material wealth, they are nevertheless quite rich. Because they're spiritually rich, they are ethically rich, they are intellectually rich. These are actually quite intelligent people, despite the fact that they live right on the edge of sustenance.
Were you careful to build up a relationship or a friendship with these people?
Absolutely.
Because how could you go in and shoot them like that?
I must say, it's a delicate process. Susan Sontag wrote a book about sort of the ugly tourist who comes in with a camera and sticks a lens in somebody's face. It's distancing, it's threatening, it's demeaning. And I hope that you find, if as you go through the book, that this is really different. Actually, Weston Neff at the Getty, who was kind enough to review some of these photographs, said to me, "I'm struck by the connection that you have with these people."
Well, that's what I wanted to know, yeah.
And what you really must do is to have respect, genuine respect for the people whom you're photographing. And you have to develop some sort of rapport. You have to stay there. You just don't sort of parachute in, stick a lens in somebody's face, shoot the picture, and leave.
That's what I mean.
So I have spent, and sometimes I'll spend, a day with someone and not get a picture. You have to begin by caring about them.
You have to know the moment when the moment is right.
That's right. And if the moment isn't right, you have to be satisfied with the fact that you're there on a cultural, intellectual, spiritual basis, and you're actually learning something from them.
The interesting thing is you show your work at Peter Federman Gallery,
That's
which
correct.
is for a photographer who has been working a short time saying photography, it's great to have a gallery. Do we call you an emerging artist after all these years?
I don't care, just call me.
Just call you an artist.
But the fact is, especially in light of who Peter has represented, I feel like the luckiest guy in the world.
What about a studio work? Do you think of doing studio work?
Never. In fact, I feel comfortable when I'm out in the field. I just got back from 3 weeks in Asia. Again, I spent 2 weeks in Burma, and sleeping in grass huts and on the floor of the houses of village chieftains and places that are so close to sustenance that we had to bring in our own food because there wasn't enough food in the villages for us to eat.
I was going to ask you about that.
Somehow I feel the draw of this. Now I've been to Cuba, I shot in Europe this year. Each place has its own magnetism, but still the more ethnicity, the more genuineness, maybe the more exotic, it seems to be what draws me in.
And we can see that in your work. And I'm so glad you came and brought your book. And I'm going to just, I'm just going to open a page as I say goodbye to you. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having
being
me.
with us.
Thank you.
And keep writing to 777 South Figueroa, 44th floor, Los Angeles, 90017.